So I'm here to talk about Interchain DAOs. If you don't know me, my name is Jake. I've started a couple projects, a couple blockchains in the Cosmos ecosystem, which is probably why you've never heard of me. I also run a fund called Analog Interchain. We're just launching recently, and we're investing in this new Interchain Paradigm. So what the hell is the Interchain? I think it's pretty much like along the lines of what you were getting at. It's an internet of blockchains connected via a standardized communication protocol. In this case, it's one that's already written called Inter-Blockchain Communication Protocol. There's no token. It's just a standard, right? It's like TCP/IP for state machines. This is actually the Interchain as it exists right now in the year 2023. There's over 60 chains that are connected. That's pretty cool. And guess what? It's a cross-ecosystem thing. We've got the very first Polkadot. Is this still working? Okay, cool. We got Polkadot and Cosmos connecting over IBC for the first time. So we're getting that real cross-ecosystem connection. In fact, fun fact, the very first transaction between Kusama and Polkadot happened over IBC and not their native interoperability protocol, which is kind of cool. So I think the key thing about open standards, like why not just use Wormhole, right? Like, well, we want permissionless, and that permissionless part is really key. We don't want to have to talk to a biz dev department to bridge to another chain. We want permissionless value, messages, and state transfer between all the chains. So if you use IBC, you get all that. Yeah, we're going to talk more about it. Yes, what's your question? No one wants to connect to it because if you connect to it, you get canceled. That's why. Space Pussy is some random. Someone made a chain, and the whole point of permissionless interoperability is that they can make connections to other people. So, yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of just high-level idea of the Interchain. It's this like standardized inter-blockchain communication protocol. It's already live. We have more than 60 chains. So right now we're kind of in this multi-chain world, right? Where we've got, our many siloed L1s. We've got some very primitive bridges. We have, in order to make do a bridge, you have to basically make a partnership. So if you have like an L2, you have to go talk with the people at Wormhole or whatever. You don't really get composability. It's mostly just moving assets, moving tokens. It's like the narrative is like ETH killers, which is so tired and boring and overdone. And the UX is not great. But we're moving to this like much more interoperable and seamless world where we're going to have many interconnected L1s and L2s, like where you can move directly between L2s without having to go back to the mainnet. It's going to feature standardized protocols. Yeah, that's going to be a big part. The bridging is going to be permissionless, so you'll be able to connect anything to anything without necessarily having to go through a third party. There's going to be rich composability. So this is more than just transferring assets. What's up, Sky? This is, actually being able to call contracts, verify state. Yeah, you can control accounts on other chains, blah, blah, blah. This is the technical explanation. I'm going to skip this, but if you want, I'll talk about it later. This is an IBC packet flow. Like IBC is like TCP/IP, but for like state machines. And really what we're doing is we're passing messages and verifying state between blockchains. I will give you the nerd version if you want after this talk. But I guess one of my thoughts is that, and I think this is going to happen, the Interchain, maybe not as it currently exists, but this Interchain will eventually extend everywhere. IBC is already the most widely used interoperability protocol. It's an open standard. Again, no intellectual property around it. And you can build things on top of it. You can build like zero-knowledge protocols on top of it. You can build custom protocols on top of IBC. It's literally just sending packets between, light clients, basically. And we already have some pretty amazing cross-ecosystem adoption. So Polkadot already live with composable finance. There's obviously all the millions of Cosmos SDK chains. We don't really care about those. And there's a project on Avalanche, but this is like ECC, so let's talk about the Ethereum stuff. Polymer Labs is a project that's working to bring IBC everywhere, including your favorite L2s. Definitely check them out if you're really interested in these sorts of things. I have a secret project which I will tell people about in private if they want, about how we're going to launch an L2 with built-in IBC support, but come talk to me afterwards. You can actually implement IBC in Solidity as well. This is an example if you're a Solidity developer and you're really curious about this stuff. Again, come talk to me. You probably don't want to run this on mainnet. It'll probably be pretty expensive, but something like this could totally work on like an L2, for example. But okay, this interchain, blah blah blah. I think it's actually a really good thing for Ethereum. Like I'm a closet ETH. I'm an interchain maxi, but I'm also an ETH maxi. Network effects are real. Okay, so like in the internet, what were the most popular businesses? It were businesses that achieve network effects. Chains that have the most connections are going to like accrue the most value. Sound economic policy is also going to be really, really important. And liquidity. Where's all the fucking liquidity? It's on Ethereum, right? And importantly, like as like IBC connections with Ethereum develop, that liquidity will become more and more useful throughout the larger interchain. And then I think also IBC solves a very important problem with Ethereum, is this like whole cross L2 communication problem, right? Where imagine a world where we have 500 L2s, right? I don't think we get to that world unless we solve the cross L2 communication problem. So, and it's best, I think, if it's done through like an open standard as opposed to like a company. But maybe that's just the idealist in me. I don't know. Anyway, so I think that these interchain narratives are like actually pretty bullish on ETH, right? Because it's sound money, it's where all the liquidity is, and the more connections you can make to that liquidity, and it kind of fits in with like kind of the ultimate settlement layer, right? Like it doesn't matter if it's an IBC Lite client or an L2, it's still kind of ultimately being settled on Ethereum, and that ETH asset is that strong money that is used, throughout the wider networks, right? So, this talk wasn't really about the interchain, it's about interchain DAOs. So this like begs the question, what really are interchain DAOs, and like how are they kind of different from, previous or like current DAOs? Well, I think I like simple definitions. I think DAOs, like interchain DAOs are just DAOs that operate seamlessly across the interchain, right? Let's visualize this a little bit. So to visualize it, I'm going to tell you about a project I work on called DAO DAO, and we make interchain DAO tooling. So this is DAO DAO, DAO.zone. My slides are a little fucked up, but I made them today, so that's okay. And it's a DAO that builds interchain DAO tooling. Like actual DAO, we probably built something that's a lot more powerful than Aragon, and we raised 0 VC dollars. So when people are getting down on DAOs, say fuck you. If you have a really great mission for your DAO and a bunch of really cool people, you can still make great shit happen. So it has a lot of the normal stuff that you would expect with DAO tooling. So we can do things like easy DAO creation, right? Like, oh, here we can make a cat DAO in like one click, and have do it for like make a DAO for like a cent. We have on-chain voting, both single choice, multiple choice, and even on-chain ranked choice voting, which is I think a first, maybe. I think the on-chain voting part is actually increasingly important. I'm happy to rant about that, but I'll spare you guys for now. I'm sorry. We have no-code smart contracts. We think is really, really important to like give DAOs the tools to instantiate, create, and manage different smart contracts. Like here in this example, we've got these little action types, right, that allow DAOs to have these proposals that do something. This is creating a vesting account, so which is ultimately a smart contract that's being instantiated to manage the payment of a DAO member. There's sub-DAOs, right? Sub-DAOs are really cool. So you can have DAOs within DAOs within DAOs within DAOs. Sub-DAOs allow for creating much more complicated like organizational structures. And you can create different rules and relationships between the different sub-DAOs. Again, I'm just going to do the whirlwind tour, but happy to go deeper or answer questions or do a live demo if people are interested later. But sub-DAOs are really cool. We have NFT and token DAOs, obviously. Who doesn't these days? We have, I think, one of our novels kind of features is we have a whole permission systems, and they can get pretty granular. So you could be like, have a particular type of authorization, like execute a smart contract, for example. You can set the smart contract address. You can specify the exact message that that person can send. You could give like an allowed, like kind of like an allowed method they're allowed to call. Like, for example, swap on a DEX, right? Maybe you can swap on the DEX, but you can't withdraw, or, you know. It's on behalf of the DAO, yeah. So very dangerous, but also very powerful. And then you can limit like the number of times it can be called. You can limit the amount of funds that can be spent with that call. So maybe you allow them to do some smaller swaps, but you can't. You only let them play with like, you know, $1,000 in the DAO treasury or whatever, you know. Yeah, I don't know. Well, this is easy on a team in team. We can run validators as a DAO. I think we might be the only DAO tooling that lets you run a validator as a DAO, and then the income from the validator goes directly to the DAO treasury, which is pretty cool. And then there's like a lot more stuff. I really don't want to ramble. Let's get to the exciting bit, the interchain part, right? And that's the part that actually just launched today, which is why I was up until like 4 a.m. last night. But yeah, what about that interchain part? So the really cool thing about DAO DAO is DAOs can control accounts on other chains. And so we have this certain type of governance proposal, which is create cross-chain account, and you can create an account on other blockchains. And it's fundamentally an account that is controlled by your DAO on whatever chain that's on, right? Like it doesn't really matter. Your DAO has one home in the interchain, but then it has a presence across all the other chains in the interchain. So here this action is creating an account on the Osmosis blockchain, which is a interchain DEX chain. It's pretty fun, cool. And then, you know, obviously once you have the account, now you have a DAO that can like manage your treasury across all the different places in the interchain. So here on the treasury page, now after we set up our account, we see, oh, we've got, you know, this is the holdings of our Osmosis account, right? And then in spend actions and things like that, you can just seamlessly spend tokens throughout the interchain, right? So here we're like sending a token on the native chain Juno, right? Same thing here. Or here we're using the Osmo chain to send some tokens. You can do IBC transfers between different chains, and it's all just kind of trying to make it as seamless of a UX as possible, so that people don't really have to, like, normal users that don't really understand, like, they don't have to think about like what's on which chain, you know, oh, we have these assets on Polygon, or we have these assets on Osmosis, you know. It's kind of like, it's just all in the DAO treasury. It's like a simpler mental model for them. But yeah, they can seamlessly like create spend actions and spend their money from across all their different accounts. And, you know, we can't just stop there. It's not just about assets, right? DAOs can call smart contracts on other chains. So this is just, you know, calling a really simple smart contract on another chain. I think much more important is that DAOs can create smart contracts on other chains. And we've actually had people using DAO DAO for just this purpose, and we're going to be actually managing all our DAO DAO deployments using our own tool to deploy our smart contracts on all the other chains that we're deploying on across the interchain. So weirdly enough, we're pursuing an interchain strategy, and DAO DAO is going to deploy everywhere we can. And including, I'm going to just drop a little bit of alpha. We're going to launch an L2. But, you know, that's, come talk to me about that afterwards. And this was incubated on a project in Cosmos called Juno, which is a crazy DAO. I don't know. It's like a smart contract chain in the Cosmos. So yeah, just kind of like high-level summary. What can interchain DAOs do, right? Let's make it real. Well, they can like mint and trade NFTs on like an NFT marketplace chain, right? They can, you know, manage concentrated liquidity on a DEX chain. Maybe they could do something on like DYDX chain, right? DYDX is now in the interchain. Yay, sick. That governed stuff. Yeah, I mean, really, interchain DAOs can do anything, right? You have an account on another chain, and you can do anything that an account on that chain can do. That's pretty sick. So yeah, I guess I'm sure there's like some questions with that very long, drawn out talk. Maybe, but really, if you want to like are interested in learning more, maybe want to collaborate on some stuff. Maybe want to join DAO DAO. Like, anyone can join DAO DAO. So yeah. I don't know. Questions, comments, concerns, criticisms. Yeah. So, how did like a DAO that raised like zero VC funding like build all this like really cool stuff? It's because we have better like tooling. We use WebAssembly smart contracts, and so all our smart contracts are written in Rust. Yes. Now the goal is the reason I mentioned the L2 is like we want to do an L2 that's a different VM, that's ultimately a rollup on Ethereum, right? Which I think is like a really interesting like kind of hybrid way to think about some of these things, where it's like you can take advantage of the properties of like a WebAssembly VM, which is pretty awesome and has awesome dev tooling. But again, what do you want to do? You want to connect to the liquidity. There's so many awesome projects that are launched on Juicebox, for example. In many ways, you want to launch your project on Ethereum because that's where the most money is. But then maybe you don't want to live on Ethereum like the whole time. If you could send it to like an L2 contract and then have actually on-chain DAO tooling that's like really good, that's way better than using Snapshot, right? Like, that's. But yeah, so I think the goal is to, we are going to be bringing DAO DAO to Ethereum. This is going to be a process, but it is, again, I don't think you can't deploy the DAO DAO contracts on Ethereum, right? They're written in Rust. They run in a WebAssembly VM. That's why they're like a lot better and a lot more performant, and like that's why we're probably going to have like privacy features for DAOs like a lot sooner than anybody else as well, because we're just writing Rust. We can move a lot faster. There are multiple ways that we can go about integrating with Ethereum. I'm currently leaning towards like an L2 approach. There's projects like Axelar, for example, or Polymer DAO. So we could partner with them. That would allow basically a DAO-controlled account on Ethereum, which could be really interesting. So, and maybe we'll wind up doing a couple of these different things depending on like the difficulties of the technical roadmap, right? So yeah, there's kind of many different paths there. And I'm happy to talk a lot more about it, but because we've had a lot of people in Ethereum really wanting this, and we want to give it to them, and so hopefully soon. Like we could probably do something like Axelar is like sort of a bridging network kind of thing. We could probably make that happen like relatively quickly, but ideologically, I'm kind of more aligned with like an IBC or like an app rollup based approach. So. Yeah. Because we're cool and we throw awesome parties and we're actual Taoists, and like we actually get together and read the Tao Te Ching, and yeah. But no, I think we want to really push the boundaries of what governance tooling can be. And I think that in many ways, like when we started DAO DAO, it was a little bit controversial. They're like, "What? You're building DAO tooling and it's not EVM? What the hell are you doing?" But today, like DAO DAO tooling actually governs a full L1. So like the Neutron chain in the Cosmos, which is a pretty large Cosmos chain, they actually run their entire L1 on DAO DAO, which is pretty cool. So I think we just need more innovation across the board. I mean, there's a lot to be done in Ethereum DAO tooling as well. Like, and I still write Solidity. And I'm still an ETH maxi. Like, I think ETH has like the culture, and I think a lot of the values that really drew me to crypto in the first place. I just, I started writing Solidity in 2016, and I'm kind of over it now. Like. I think that it might not be like the end-all be-all smart contract language for all of time, and that's fine. It'll still be incredibly valuable, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So, but I think that the reason to join DAO DAO is because you care about really pushing the boundaries of governance tooling, right? I almost don't even say it like DAO tooling, right? Like, because the word DAO has all these like political assumptions to it, like a little bit of extra baggage. I think even people in quote unquote traditional orgs like local governments could use tooling like DAO tooling, right? Like, how much better would your local government be if you could actually just vote on an app, and you could just vote as there were proposals, and there wasn't, it's crazy. Like, you have to wait a whole year to do anything. That's the speed at which our government works. Like, waiting a whole year before they can send out like a round of like 20 proposals, and then everyone gets 20 all at once, so they don't really pay attention to any of them. Like, I think that we could really build like much better, like, I mean, that's the reason you would join. But it's the same reason you would work on DAOs. Like, and even if you work on rival DAO tooling, I don't care. We're part of the same family because we have the same values and the same vision. And so even if, I don't see competitors. If anything, I see our competitors as like the people that are trying to fight us. We're all on the same side, and we're just doing like slightly different experiments. So, yeah. All right. Well, I've been ranting for a while. Any last thoughts, or bit sick? All right. Well, thank you.